Indie Mogul.
Hey guys, Russell here. This week is all about the basics of screenplay formatting. Next week I'll be covering more advanced formatting tips, but to know what I should cover, send me your questions at friday101mail@gmail.com, subject line, screenplay format question. If something isn't covered in this video, ask me about it. What do I do in this situation or that situation? One thing I know I'll be covering is what to do if two characters are talking at the same time, so that's a good example, but now it's taken, so don't ask that. Now, let's get to it. Interior Fremont City taxi. Night. Moving. Buildings and street scenes go by as seen through a dirty car window. William, an older, gruff-looking gentleman who looks like he'd be more comfortable on a Western film set, is in the back seat of a rattling taxi, looking out the window at the passing urban decay. The cabbie has a rough but friendly voice and speaks to William with a nostalgic tone. Cabbie adjusts rearview mirror to see William more easily.
I've been living in this city almost 30 years, you know. Seen it all. My parents, God rest their souls, moved us here so I could be in a good school system. The school system! Can you believe it? To look at this place?
That was a quick excerpt from my short film script I'm currently working on getting made. In that short excerpt are the 5 basic elements of proper screenplay formatting. The slug line, or scene heading, the action, or description, the character name, the dialogue, and parentheticals, which is a lot of fun to say. The finer points of screenwriting will add more small elements to this mix, but for you beginners, especially those who have never written a properly formatted screenplay before, let's focus on these simple basics. There are many screenplay programs out there that help make formatting easier. That way you don't have to memorize so many different margins and then have to go through and set those manually. Final Draft was always my favorite program, and I used to use Movie Magic Screenwriter as well. But there's a free solution available to everyone now, and for the purposes of using something everyone can use, I'll be working in Celtex, which you can use yourself at celtex.com. First, the slug line. At the start of each scene, you want to establish a few things. It starts out simple. Is your scene inside or outside, or in this case, interior or exterior? Easy, right? After that, add your location and a description of when the scene takes place. Usually just day or night will suffice, but you can get more specific if you want. Morning, afternoon, evening, dawn, dusk. If the flow of time between two scenes is uninterrupted, even if cutting to a completely different location, you can write continuous. Same location but need to show the passage of time to later in the day? Use later. As far as the word moving at the end of the taxi slug line I used earlier, that's generally only used in a moving vehicle. You can also use traveling in that case. And remember that your slug line is all caps all the time. Now for the action, where you write out the description of what is happening on screen, who people are, etc. This is the most straightforward part of the screenplay writing-wise, but there are a few little things to know. First, always write in the present tense. This line later in my script, William takes out a cigar and nods to the cabbie, would never be William will take out the cigar or William took out a cigar. Those just sound silly anyway. The first time a character comes up in the action, generally as they are introduced in the script, their name is capitalized. William, an older, gruff-looking gentleman who looks like he'd be more comfortable on a Western film set, is in the backseat of a rattling taxi. Try to sum things up to describe your character in the action as best you can. You don't want to give their entire life history, just enough to give the reader a feel for who they are. Notice rattling is capitalized also. This can be done to call attention to certain sounds and sound effects. And while there isn't really a definitive rule on when to do this, I think it's best used when it helps set a scene, like the rattling taxi, getting across that the cab is a piece of junk to help set the feel of the scene. Or when it's important to what is happening on screen, which is why sound effects like gunshots and explosions are usually capitalized as well. And one last note about actions and descriptions, always have something between the slug line and the dialogue. Even just one quick line will do. Now we're at the character name. That's easy. All caps, centered, done. If a character is speaking from off screen, but is still physically a part of the scene, you would add OS in parentheses. If a character is not physically part of the scene, but is doing a voiceover, you would add VO. Celtex and many other programs make the character name thing easier for you by letting you autofill the name after typing the first letter once you've already put it in. That's a big reason why movies generally don't have characters with the same name and usually have characters whose names start with different letters entirely. Just makes everything easier. For the dialogue, the text gets centered on the page while still keeping a normal left side alignment. Dialogue is also pretty straightforward. Feel free to write it in your character's voice if they've got a specific way of talking, like the cabbie character here, but that's up to you. You can add detail to what actions a character is doing while speaking through the use of parentheticals. Set in parentheses and with a left side margin a bit further in to help differentiate it visually from the dialogue, these are used to help block out a scene. They don't have to be complete sentences, just basic descriptions of what is happening. Truth be told, I I could probably have moved this note about the mirror to the description, but I wanted to give a good example and found that as I was reading it, I liked the idea of the character doing this while speaking his lines. So in this short bit, you've got all 5 of the basic elements. Properly formatting your screenplays is very important, and the more you do it, the more it'll become second nature. At my old job, while on my lunch break, I would actually write scripts down in notebooks and still follow the right format. Just makes for a much easier to understand read, even when done on pen and paper. Now that's all for the basics of screenplay formatting. Now next week we'll be going over the many small variations that come along with writing a script, and when that happens, the button on screen right now, covering up my screenplay in the background, will take you there. So if you're watching this in the future, click that button to continue learning about proper formatting. Remember to send all your questions about script formatting to Friday101mail@gmail.com, subject line screenplay format question. Also, check out the other window to bring up the how-to playlist over on Celtex's channel, and go get yourself registered at Celtex.com if you want to get started writing. On a completely unrelated note, I recently recorded an appearance on the Ron Pertee Show, a great podcast that I was honored to be a part of, and that episode goes up on Tuesday, April 2nd at ronpertee.com. The link is on screen and in the description if you want to check that out. See you all next week.